Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Esoterics. Today with your intrepid host. Can't even speak this morning. Satara Jules Lightbringer. And good morning, and Amber
Morning.
Chamberlain, Suburban Lightworker. We are here in incredible changing times on this very beautiful planet and time. We are reporting out some experiences today. We're going to talk to you about what we are aware of in the collective energies happening right now. And then we do, as we always do on this show, we turn into some practical esoterics, practical perspectives on how we go in this time. So let me just say hello and welcome to the beautiful and very fine Satara Jules Lightbringer. Satara, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
That's a tough question. I'm doing well, but boy, things feel a lot different right now.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, my body feels different. My world feels different. So, well, that's a good place to start. Would you kind of grace us with what, Satara, you are aware of in the collective, um, first and foremost? What are you picking up on the street?
Well, it's been very, very interesting since most of the world has been on lockdown. I'm finding it quite entertaining at times, I think is a good way, because it's like everybody who didn't have an opinion before seems to have now found one. And that is interesting to say the least. So it's really good to watch what's kind of playing out with people. We've got the whole, like, I don't know, well, I think it's the same in the US as it is here in the UK and most of the world, that the only time you can go out is for medical reasons or grocery. End of thought process. Here they suggest that you can go for a walk or cycle or run to get your exercise. Solitary, of course. So yeah, it's been a little bit interesting, but the waves of judgment on the planet at the moment are absolutely out of this world. You've not got gloves on, you've not got a mask on. Oh dear, you went out in the sunshine, and oh, you weren't walking, running, or cycling. There's all sorts of things been going on, and I've just found it mind-boggling. I'm of the personality type that I don't care what anybody else is doing as long as they're happy. End of thought process. Not interested in any shape, manner, or form. I just think, if they're good with it, if it's keeping them happy, if they're in a good place, absolutely fine, let them carry on. What this place is about, isn't it? It's exploring things and finding our own inner happiness. So if that's giving someone happiness, let them find it. Whereas at the moment, there seems to be this kind of backlash against, oh my God, they were smiling in the sunshine, shoot them. And I'm watching it with like interest, because I'm just like, wow.
Right. And does this remind you, in your broad, in the broadest sense, does this remind you of another time on the planet?
Oh, yes. It reminds me of a lot of other times on the planet. Germany has been coming up a great deal for me lately for lots of reasons. I work for a German company now. I can see that the reason I work for a German company now is in my last linear lifetime, I spent the latter part of my life in Germany. I actually died there on the 12th of December, 1942. So that's how precise I can be with that last linear lifetime for people who perhaps don't know how I work that way that listen to the show. At that time, the repression was huge. People were afraid. We hear all about the persecution of the Jews by the Nazis. But it wasn't just the Jews by any stretch of the imagination. It was anybody who didn't fit the box that they wanted them to fit in. The amount of ethnic cleanses of the Romani community, as an example, sort of like the nomadic gypsy around not just Germany, but Poland and anywhere they could get hold of, were put into the camps as well. They were exterminated exactly the same way. People who were bisexual, gay, oh yeah, they all went in the camps as well. If you didn't fit the idea of the perfect Aryan, to go back to the phrase of the time, you didn't fit in that box. You weren't welcome anymore.
The developmentally disabled.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. If there was anything going on, you weren't part of the master race, you were history. And it reminds me of that time. It reminds me of the people having to hide indoors, to be in hidden attics, to be in hidden walls, to be in cellars that nobody knew existed, to be able to hide away from the eyes that would look at them and judge. We're doing it again.
Could you imagine, Sitara, that for the awakening populace, which, by the way, if you don't know, this pandemic in particular is two things in my estimation. It's a large gateway for a large swath of population to exit, should they choose to do that. One, it's also a very millennial, like the generation behind. I'm an X. You're an X. I think that would be the millennial generation behind us. Is choosing this as a huge awakening portal.
Yeah, totally.
Could you imagine?
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah, could you imagine the triggering that is going on for all of these lifetimes of persecution, of limitation, of enslavement, of control?
Yeah, just the whole repression energy across all of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Feeling that you cannot be your true self because of the eyes looking at you to judge you.
Do you anticipate, could you imagine that a lot of, in this awakening phase during this very oppressive moment on the planet, that people are having an increased awareness of how that's actually been occurring this lifetime, but quietly, subtly, sort of in the dark?
Yeah.
Do you think that, I'm wondering if that's why you go to the Germany motif?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking from a point of view of, that is worldwide known. There are other motifs I could have used. I could have hopped across to Vietnam and had the same conversation. I could have done the same in Japan. I could have gone pretty much in every country in the world. We will have had some sort of way across time with this whole repression and look at them, they don't fit in box. We could talk witch trials. We could talk any form of persecution throughout history would fit the box.
Something that came up for me this week as I went to the market, and I had my N95 mask on my face. I don't know. Yeah, do I participate? Do I not? How do I do that? I'm trying to be on the one hand, I'm trying not to inflame anyone or have to deal with any inflammatory anything. So sometimes you have to go along like a lemming and you have to do these things. You all who are listening to the show will understand.
You have to conform.
Just because I want to get a jug of milk, I've got to kind of go. It's just freakish, but I'm aware that I'm a person that uses so I use my face a lot to convey love. I use my eyes and I push a lot of energy through my physical expression, particularly my face. And having that covering isolates my energetic typical pathway of expressing my sense of love
Mm.
that I naturally, as a light worker, share using my face. And I'm just acutely aware of how I've been asked to cover that,
Yeah,
to
to stifle it.
stifle it, not only in myself, to try to stifle me, but also to keep you, the viewer, from engaging that kind of love, to feeling that from me or
Yeah,
from the collective. Wow, I'm thinking this is a very clever, clever, clever moment.
it is indeed. They're announcing here, a lot of us aren't wearing masks. I don't possess one. I'm like, I don't, not even go in there.
I know,
I,
but you're in this little village, and I'm over here in suburban
yeah.
America. I'm
Mm.
afraid someone might shoot me. As you, to your point, I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you. I'm with
I
you.
go along to get along.
Whereas here, I find that when I actually went grocery shopping this last week, the fact that I'm not wearing gloves, I'm just in jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, the same as I am the rest of the time, it's made no jot of difference to me whatsoever. And people are looking at me like I'm the strange one. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
But listen, here's my
Sideways.
situation.
You know when you get the sideways look, so you're like, hello.
But here I am. No, listen, and I want to, for our listeners here, I want to also point out, and you wouldn't be aware of this because it's not your thing, see, but the likes of someone like Barbara Marciniak, who channeled Pleiadian group something for many a year, and I tapped into some of her work very early, 2007, looking for just looking for some community, like what the hell is going on with me? Why am I all of a sudden having the cosmic awareness? That whole piece going on. And I actually, my thought is about to get disrupted.
Oh, disrupted indeed. Are you able to come back, or how disruptive are we? Very. Oh, okay, right. Well, I'm going to kind of continue where Amber left off then, while she's disappeared down a little rabbit hole of technology, and just carry on talking about where we're kind of at with the way these energetics are working. It's very, very clever, very, very subtle to be able to, as Amber's quite eloquently said, hold that sort of space over the face, the whole mask thing, the repression of the expression that we give to each other, the fact that we smile to each other, that we say hello. This is all kind of being stepped back. So many people now are so afraid of what they believe could happen to them that they just can't even express themselves to say hello. Can't even share 2 minutes of conversation with you, whereas normally that would be something that happens every time you leave the door to say good morning, good afternoon to people you're encountering. Is very common here in the UK, and also common across an awful lot of the world. Even if people aren't engaging to that, you still smile to each other as you're kind of passing each other on the street, or moving around grocery stores, etc. So it is interesting how that is like a layer of programming almost to step us back into a different level of self. And to me, I can see that part of that reasoning would be as simple as to give further opportunity for each individual to go more within, to be able to look at how they are observing and reacting and dealing with things, as opposed to being so busy with life. Because the way that everything has kind of worked that way, is just allowed us in this time to be so time sparse. We get up in the morning, we shower, we go off to work, we work all day, we come back, we cook the dinner. We have a couple of hours at best to spend with our friends and family before we're back on the treadmill once more of the daily routine. So as I say, I think that we are finding this a huge challenge at the moment to actually have that additional time to spend on ourselves, because we're not used to having this richness of time to be able to do whatever we want to do. We're given a certain amount of freedom at the moment to allow us to have that reflection of self.
So, and I apologize for blipping out there for a minute. I had a little technical problem. Thank you for carrying on, Satara.
That's quite all right.
Carol, that's a very good point, and it's the inversion, isn't it, of the sensation of being trapped or stifled, as I was saying about.
Yeah, I carried on with the stifled conversation.
Yeah, good, because I think that you just expressed which is a very inverted, from a geometric standpoint, it's sort of an upside down or inorganic condition we're in, whereas what you're describing is what people do in our collective who have caught on to this. We say, well, holy hell, I'm going to now find the freedom or the sovereign writing of that inversion. We meet it with our sovereignty and go, well, I didn't expect to have this kind of time to do this. I didn't expect to be laid off from my job. I didn't expect to be home with my family. I didn't expect to not have access to the normal grocery. And next thing we know, we're making chocolate chip cookies, my husband, for the first time at age 60, as I coached him, and they were beautiful cookies.
That's so cool.
I think that's the wavelength we were on.
Yeah, totally. I was just basically saying before, the very nature, I carried on with where you were going, with the nature of the masks being a repellent to each other, to not be able to express freely, to be locked down in a way that we have never had to experience before.
Not this lifetime.
No, very much so. So it's very, very interesting to see how everybody is reacting to that. How some are like myself are like, there's no way I'm putting a mask on. I'm going to have to be like threatened with imprisonment before that kind of happens. Because I just think it is what it is for me. I just like, that's not happening. I have got a very delicate form in this lifetime, and I've got a lot of allergies. I can't even use hand sanitizer. I'm allergic to it. So hello. I could probably use neat vodka or something, but I'd probably be good with something like that on my hands, but this, whatever's in it, it just doesn't work for me. And I'm not going to be the only one that is going to be unable to do this. We look at these masks and you just think, well, I'm allergic to elastic. If you put an elastic band with me, I come out in welts. So any masks with elastic on, which are all of them, I'd have a problem with anyhow. So that was my initial thought. It's like, I'm going to come out in welts if I wear that. That's going to make me unwell. So that's going to be worse than the possible risk of someone breathing on me.
Right. Well, yeah. and what I also noticed in humans, being at the market, first of all, I was talking about Barbara Marciniak, and I forgot to come back to that. But Barbara was telling back when I was listening in 2007, and now was she current with that timeline in 2007? I think it was. Mm-hmm. And she was indicating, listen, we're going to watch us be herded into cattle type lines. We're going to be watching, how we're slowed down and kind of put through a maze of lines and rules and constrictures, and the airports, and it was so fascinating. And I didn't think about that until recently, what she was talking about, as I stood there in my local supermarket, and I was in a line in the back of the grocery store, 6 feet apart, because we were asked to go like so.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting on a very human level was there was a woman behind me, and if I didn't move fast enough to the next mark, she would say, "Ma'am, ma'am," from underneath her mask. I couldn't even bring myself to turn around and look at her. I thought, oh my God. So human beings themselves turn into the master, they turn into
Mm-hmm.
the enslaver. There's
Yeah,
only a few ways to go. You either
yeah.
go, you either
But
go.
everybody's playing the roles that they need to play within it, and presumably this ma'am adherent behind you, is she now finding some sort of empowerment through this? Because
Absolutely.
did she
Absolutely.
need to be hidden with her mask to be able to become empowered?
Absolutely.
It would
And it's
disempower me. I'd be dancing on the mask.
well, and so what I did, I think my rebellion, my rebellion came out in that time, in that line with this ma'am business. Eventually, I decided to spend my time doing some yoga beside my cart. I thought, oh, I'm going
Go
to.
girl.
I thought, well, I'm standing here. I have nothing else to do. I'm not going. And interestingly, the line wove through like the light bulb section and the saran wrap section, and I didn't need any of that. But it was getting picked over, and then it ran right through the liquor section, right through the wine bottles. And I saw people just, and I don't know
Yeah.
what you guys doing in the UK, but our liquor sales are up. I want to say something like 435% or some.
I would imagine it's the same here. I honestly don't know, but the fact that all the like pubs and restaurants and bars are shut, one would imagine that it's going off the shelves in a different way.
But our cattle line is right through the wine bottles, But here I am doing, downward facing. A stretch of warrior. It's like a quiet rebellion. I was like, if I'm going to be here, you people, and this lady telling me to move up, and the kind of people that honk when you're at a light and you don't go fast enough. I was like, oh
Yeah.
God. But I think you're absolutely right, and I
Yeah.
think this is pressing it's a period of great revelation. It's a
It is.
revelations type. It's almost biblical.
Yeah, very, very much so. But yeah,
Uh,
that's hilarious. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? That this whole like you can't see me, therefore I can step into this whole new vista of at people.
yeah, especially if you are still exploring what and I always like to bring into our conversation some of the constructs. Um, if you're exploring the polarity of service to self, if you are still dancing in the polarity of service to self, you're absolutely going to be the person that tells that next person, hey, where's your mask? Hey, where's your move up lady? Hey, there's always
Oh
someone.
yeah. Oh my god, they're in the park, shoot them.
Right. I'm like, oh my God.
But you hear it, don't you? I'm watching it and just think, oh, okay, that's absolutely fine.
When my husband and I go out for our walks together, which is, by the way, I talk about a very, again, another positive aspect. I've never held my husband's hand this much. I've never walked this long. I've never heard him talk and chatter this much in our entire many years together. There's something that's very freeing for him in this really constricted time. as we walk and talk, I will whisper. If I see a family with a baby in a carriage coming or stroller, I'll say, honey, move over. We don't want to trigger these people to feel like they need to defend the 6 feet for that baby. There's
Yeah.
weird, it's granular.
Yeah. Whereas normally you wouldn't think twice about that. That wouldn't be permeating anybody's brain to even think, oh, we're going to be close to whatever we're going to be close to. But isn't it interesting with the way that a lot of people's jobs have set back, even if they're working from home, the extra time that they've got in their hands to perhaps not be completely dressed up for work. They might be working at the PC in pajamas. Do you know what I mean? Does it matter? They're still working. But the whole commuting time has been freed up. That whole getting ready for work, getting changed when you get home, and all the little routines that you have now gone out of the window. So that is allowing for that space to be freed up for the mind. Therefore, that is allowing the mind to relax, and what has been sat there that has been unable to be spoken about before necessarily is now coming out in the chatter.
I could not.
To process it, to bring it forward.
Let me give you an example of something I didn't know about my husband in all these years together. I don't even know why it came up on the one hand, but now that we're having this conversation about oppression and genocide that you were mentioning from Germany, he just out of the blue, as we're talking along, he says, you know, I volunteered to be an attorney, he's an attorney, for the immigration of Bosnians back when Bosnia Herzegovina were having their ethnic cleansing issues, in particular acutely, I guess was this late 80s?
Yeah.
90s? Out of the blue, I don't know, I didn't even know how it came up. He's telling me about this and telling me about how our administration in the US, he didn't feel handled that properly. It was, you know, and mentioned our governmental system at the time and so forth. He was talking about that, and then he talked about how he was ready to volunteer to help the immigration process as an attorney, and then didn't get a chance to do it because we didn't accept any of the Bosnians at that time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that about my love. Mm-hmm. It gave me yet another dimension to our relationship and to who I'm with.
Yeah.
This life that I would not, had this pandemic business, Sitara, not happened, I wouldn't have known something so graceful and also such a warrior aspect. Yet another example of that with this person I'm with. Another thing I'm going to say is, as an introverted ambivert, I can throw the glamour and gloss on to get the external work done, but I have to retreat. Well, now with the use of Zoom in business, I'm having to listen. First of all, I'm having to listen to my team as a collective for almost an hour in the morning. Then I'm having to jump on a Zoom with this group in the afternoon for about an hour. And they're having to look at me. I'm looking at them. They're in my private space, so to speak, the one that we are looking at now, or what you're seeing me in, Sitara. And I went through 2 weeks of abhorring it, just aberrance. And I even said so. I was like, people, this is driving me nuts. Until I realized, as a light worker, I'm serving this group. They are to see me this laid bare. They are to engage the fullness of my energy and my capability as a light worker. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're not having this level of conversation that you and I are having. We're talking about the issues at business hand. They are to engage seeing me this way, and I them, because they are me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Who are we being naked in front of ourselves?
And I could label each of them, I call them the Brady Bunch, because they're all up on a panel. Mm-hmm. I could easily identify me in each of them and who they are to me, warts and all. So it's an amazing cleansing period on timeline aspects of myself that have both charmed me and horrified me, yeah, depending on the aspect that they're representing in front of me. Yeah. So Tara, so give me an example of a place where you're being, where just because of the pressures of what people are under and who they are, something that's confronting you like that with yourself.
Where would you like me to begin?
Which one?
Yeah. As you know, I work on a global market for what should we call my day job. It's only a small part of what I do, admittedly, because most of my work is serving the light community. You know, I work with clients all over the world every day, which is beautiful. But I also have, shall we call it, the day job, which I love. Don't get me wrong, I do love it. But yeah, I can be triggered in it quite significantly lately. I think that's a good way of putting it. But again, although I'm actually busier in this pandemic than I normally am, I'm going to add that in before I spill out anything further. So I'm actually finding less time for my brain to slow down to deal with stuff than everybody else seems to be having. They've got all these people with all this time on their hands, and I'm just thinking, great. At one point, I was 8 days behind looking at messages for me.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, you saw that on Facebook. I was like, please bear with me. I'm undated. I'm getting overwhelmed with this because I just do not. If I was up 24 hours a day, at that point, I could not have got through all of the stuff, which I just find is incredible. But again, doesn't that just talk about the challenge that we have given ourselves? That most of the messages that I was having were from people who were stuck in discernment, I think is the way I'm going to term it, because they were seeing a particular set of circumstances and they were unable to work out how they felt about it. They couldn't work out where they felt, if it was positive, where it was negative, where it was neutral. They could not make it out. And rather than stepping back and giving themselves time to process it, they would rather ask somebody else.
Yeah.
That kind of ended up as me at some point for some of this, which is why I had the overwhelm with like, I don't give a stuff what's going on, work it out yourself, because it isn't my bag. I don't know any of this. I don't see any of this in my reality. So therefore, this, you know, this is your thing to grapple with at this time. But I just find that fascinating. That rather than become empowered and go, actually, this is what I think. That a lot of people are not in that space to be able to do that.
But that's the thought control, Sitar, that the matrix on the planet, it has robbed people blind of their, it has, let me put it this way, it has projected to have robbed individuals blind of their sovereign perception capability and sovereign being. It has done nothing of the sort, let's be clear. But it is, so your inbox for work got, for your esoteric work got slammed because people are being triggered to want to be told what to think.
Yeah.
Because that's breaking open, that's falling away. They're being forced to confront for every reason you've described in this whole call. They're confronted with themselves for the first time as a sovereign being, and who are you going to be, and what are you going to think?
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of sat on the fence going, I don't know which side to get off.
And so I think it is a good thing, a powerful thing
Yeah,
for silence and not being available to answer to. Because I think that's the role that we can tend to get into
yeah,
as long term light working people. We've been shoved into the corner of readings. We've talked about that. We've been shoved into the corner of sort of the psychic realm and the, 1-800 call a psychic kind of crap.
exactly. But just because we can look at a timeline and know the answer doesn't mean that we should give it.
Well, and also I think that
You know?
Sitar, I think it's even more than that. I
Yeah,
think it's
it
even
is.
further than that. Yeah,
It
I
is.
think it's we we're not to know that for one another. Can you look out across fractals and look down timelines? Can you look across frequency? Absolutely, you're exquisite this way, and you're very unique too in this way. Um, can I get very clear pictures, messages, information to uh, add to your breadcrumb trail? Can I bring you around to um, keys and triggers that you will then go for? Absolutely. But I think this is the time on the planet
Not to.
in that it's not to, we are to then, the ultimate self responsibility, the ultimate experience of your sovereign nature. There, it's the im and that you will
Yeah,
say.
it is.
None of it is good, none of it is bad. It's
Yeah.
not that it's neutral. Don't get lost in the construct of neutral, because it's not neutral. It's 0 point is not neutrality.
No.
0 point is a pivot, a place of pivot where you make choices. You make choices. I don't make them for you.
Yeah, very, very much so. Very, very much so. That kind of brings me to just touch on something very, very quickly, which is spiritual bypassing. We hear this term a great deal in the light working community. What that basically is people trying to see the end result they're aiming for, the information that they want, rather than experiencing the exquisiteness of the journey and the choices of the journey. Which is right. But I'm just going to add that other layer in there.
No, it absolutely is what I'm talking about, and I feel compelled to. I want to tell this group in this conversation who's coming to it what I'm also noticing. Two things. Personally, I'm noticing, and Sitar and I spoke about it to each other earlier today, that my own platform is on the move. I was already, as a light worker, called away from individual work with clients. I'd been called into a very dark body of work in the United States, a very dark, painful place for human beings. And I'm still doing that today as full-time work. But and so that changed my platform already. That was sort of the first change. This next change through this pandemic pressure point, this inflection point, I'm having some things put in my face that I, as more of a crystal being, I do not particularly pay a lot of attention to. And it is all of this about the inverted, should I say, more of the dark magic on the planet, the dark energetic harnessing of free energy that's been on our planet for a long time. I've had so much more of that like smashed up into my face. And remember, everyone, we do not bring to us for awareness that which we are not ready to take a look at.
Yeah.
And we make a choice. So I'm watching, and what I also noticed, that's for me personally, and I know that means my type of service is shifting into, and I can feel it because I was telling Sitar this, my body is on fire. I have a lot of heat almost all day long. In addition, I have a sensation of numbness that will come and go out of my body. I've literally had to start running again some in order to kind of get ahead of the frequency and to almost sweat it out, pound it out of my form, because it's to move the energy, because I'm picking up on the collective anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm picking up on the collective horror and fear pulses that are going on. I'm also in a part of the United States in the seat of the American government where I live, and I am a part. I'm very tuned into, let me say, what is collectively here, and I'm working that. So I'm aware of that too. But what I wanted to say, Satar, is something that I noticed, because it's a part of the community you don't pay any attention to for your animal, but it gets in front of me, and I barely touch Facebook anymore. I will see you, I pop something every now. I was like, what did she just say? And I said, you doing your albums, you and Sean. I was like, that's cool. Yeah, I'll only get directed to something kind of light usually. Well, I tend to take a peek because it feels there's more beauty on Instagram. So I'll take a peek, and then I'll see a couple of my favorite folks pop up there in terms of the energetic world. And something that I noticed happened to them in the last 6 months, in the last 3 months since all this began, people that I could rely on to not have the dark agenda, so to speak, in their content, they are squarely looking it on the eye.
Yeah, it is changing, isn't it? And it just goes to show what sometimes you have to pay a bit of attention to, just to really know that it still exists here. I live in my little village in the middle of nowhere, which is perfect for me, you know.
It is.
Necessarily have the things put into my face as you would, because the very nature of where I live. I can actually, if I wanted to, with now that we don't even get like the doorbell rang for a parcel, it's just left outside, they don't even touch the doorbell. You know, I could go however many days, weeks, months I wanted to go without actually having to physically see somebody. How wonderful is that? But that, to me, tells me that the reason I have set myself up in that situation is because that's what I need to have. It is because I need to have that solitary time for whatever reason I need to have that space for. Yeah, I'm busy at work. Yes, I spend half of my life on Skype and Zoom. Yeah, but that isn't quite the same as having someone sat next to you, stood next to you, in your face, next to you. The energetics, although they are diluted because of the distance aspect of things. So that talks to me about another layer for myself that is starting to peel away. Like my beautiful colleague here, Amber, I am getting the heat in my body out of this world. I've gone from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day within 20 minutes, half an hour of eating. My metabolism is kicked up to the high teeth, and I am roasting. And that tells me that it isn't necessarily about me, but it's whatever is needing to shed is literally burning off of the physical body. Now, that isn't going to be anything as random as flesh or anything that's going on. It's to do with the anatomy of the body per se. It's to do with the energetics.
The energetic body.
When we look at the energetic light body, when we think of energies, we think first of colors. We then think of color rays. But what happens then when we get to a certain point, we move to color flame? And this is what we are starting to experience now in the physical. I know.
I'm on fire.
We're going to be ghost riders, all of us. But you know what I mean? Just that energy of that has ramped up to that level. But what that is actually telling us, well, that's giving us this manifestation of heat, is how we are starting to move into a different level of empowerment. When we move into that different level of empowerment, everything changes, because we cannot step back into what we were. Once we see something, once we understand it, we can't unsee it. And this is where we are both at from a point of view of the work we're doing. I may be still working with individual clients, but any of my existing clients will know that the way I'm working now compared to the way I was working at the beginning of the year, I am a different person.
And you've integrated more. What I think I'm seeing and what I'm hearing in this is more soul in the body, more frequency, crystalline frequency being, less density. Yeah, that we are aligning with the planet's own energetic framework where she is.
Yeah, totally. Because she is us.
Mm-hmm.
We are her. So that if energies are changing for more than 51% of the collective shifts to a certain degree with it.
And we reach, well, it's interesting, right? So if I have this right, because there are people who come to this conversation who like to understand it as called the ascension or the great awakening or whatever name all these funny names we have. But really, you make a very good point. We are her, she is us, and the shedding is just, we've all had a lot of shedding, I'd say, for the last decade, in particular. And Satara, you are distinctly sort of in your own kind of class of human as you came. I may be more representative of the larger small portion of our collective. I think you're sort of exquisitely your own being. And I think I represent more of who probably comes to the call in our tribe and so forth. And I know that we all have shed relationships, we've shed work, we've shed so much pain. We've gone into our pain, we've processed so much, but now it's a very different shedding. It's probably like almost particulate, and that's why it's the heat and the flame. I'm aware in my first and second chakra, where I'm picking it up is first and second chakra, which says it's very primitive. It's very I don't know, I guess it would be considered it's the fear that we've all been under as a planet, the very low grade fear that is now on high alert. The planet, I picked that up.
But don't forget as well the very nature of the fact that some of us are starting to embody energetic flame. What is that doing? That is removing some of the energetic waters. What are waters? They are very much the emotional body or the overtly emotional body. So when there has been situations before that we would have perhaps had a reaction to, even a meltdown to, depending on how overt they were, that's all talking about the waters. As we move more into the flame, we're not engaged in that way anymore, because we've gone from someone who's highly participating into something into the observer role, because we've already moved through what we perhaps needed to understand with that emotional energetic. Therefore, we've started to be a little detached from that emotional energetic because we've moved to the next plateau.
So would the heat and intensity be the burning off of that aspect? Would that be would that be the wounded aspects of the emotional body?
Very much so.
Or traumatized.
You know,
Traumatized.
because don't forget that our emotional body doesn't just give us who we are now, it gives it who we are on other timelines for what most of our collective here would think would be past lives. So if we have carried through a particular trauma from a past life that is affecting us now, when we have worked through and we've dealt with the emotions attached to that, even if we haven't realized what they were attached to, not everybody has to see the visions and understand the pasts that we've had to be able to shed them, because we are triggered with similar situations here, so that our subtle energies remember them to be able to start the removal of. And I think it's that simple. We start beyond where we have been before.
Well, and that was the promise of the changeover that we're going through. Is, you know, what typically humans don't live through this. This is not. This is what makes this different.
Yeah, it's the gift within.
The gift within. And my sister and I were speaking yesterday in some of these terms, but in the way she and I speak about it. And we talked about how one day she and I are going to talk about how it was before and then how it was after.
Yeah.
And that's a miracle and an amazing thing to be able to say as a human.
Yeah, very much so, which shows what a time we're actually here and decided to be here to be a part of.
Right. That is what is such the amazing and beautiful and powerful time. And those of you who have children, and awakening and awakened children, I certainly do. And on the one hand, sort of the rapid awakening going on that needs a lot of nurturing and a lot of support. And then on the other hand, my own amazement at who this being really is and why the awakening has to be the way it is. It's just a lot.
The triggers and the layers to it are just vast, aren't they?
It's it really is vast. Well, I feel the need to kind of come around to close up this conversation. What I do want to say to the community, though, who listens, is Satara and I spoke about how we'd like to proceed going forward. We have always intended this to be a forum in which we brought sort of specializations, brought specialty conversations in this container, that we had guests who would come and through their pipeline of emphasis and specialty, that they spoke about that piece of work that they are holding on the planet and operationalizing in this larger container that Satara and I hold. So we see that this is a time now to turn this show into the original format that it was always meant to be. We do see and appreciate that we needed to lay this groundwork up to this point with this community, but we are looking to invite a broader audience who could really use this space to have the exposures to these specializations and specialty topics of interest, while in this very broad and exquisitely aware container. So Satara, is there any other way to say that?
No, I think you've kind of nailed it. I just think it would be lovely to, give this space to who would be, and so many people in our tribe have been like we have. We have been stepped back. We've been working for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But nobody knew we were, because we were very, very quiet, and we were doing this nicely in the background, and quietly we were shoved forward to kind of, like we both have been here to do this. Prior, it was very rare that I went on many radio shows. You will find me out there at times, but it wasn't something that I was up for. So I tended to go and do something and then hide again. And there's a lot of our type that are like this. And I think it would be lovely to start to garner some of our friends across the planet to just speak about what is it that brings that spark to their hearts for their little thing that they do, because we all have something that we do. It might be working with fairies, it might be working with dragons, it might be working with off-planet beings, it might be working with the galactic fleet, whatever. Wouldn't it be interesting to actually have these specialists that are out there at the moment that have been working diligently and quietly to actually have their 30 minutes or so of this is who I am. I feel comfortable in this space to now talk about this is who I am.
I would love that. And that's where we're headed, Sitara. And I'm glad we've arrived at that time. I think the energetics on the planet really were holding us back until we could get here, because everything is divine right timing. It's not Amber's time, it's not Sitara's time. And I'm grateful to have gotten to this point. And I'd love to encounter these individuals who are ready for that. And we're such a safe container. We're a small container in terms of, it's not that we have this broad format today. We're not on the front lines of the format as so many are who are holding it. Remember the quality and nature of those who are coming now, and those who will come after us will only take the story that much further into the harmonic that we are moved into. We are just the right voices at this very right time, just as are those who are on the front lines, making themselves very public with warts and all. I'm grateful to them too, warts and all. And I'm grateful for us to take our place in the conversation too as we go. Everyone, thank you for spending this time with us. We know it's been a bit meandering, but we know these changing times require a different conversation and an evolving one. And we're grateful for you here on Esoterics today. Thank you for being with me. I'm Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker.
And for me, which is Sitara Lightbringer, Temple of Stars. And we will talk to you again next month. In the meantime, just stay happy, which is all we ever want you to be.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Much love.